Time for a round of applause for Eric.
Thank you. Give a quick round of applause for Elliot for setting this whole thing up. All right, I'm Eric Robinson. I'll get into that again in a few moments. First, the talk is titled Music That Drives Your Gameplay, Bringing Music to the Foreground. So there was kind of not really much audio going on, although we did see some of the new cool features that are coming in Unity 5 in the last talk. This talk is basically going to be all about music. We at Sonic Bloom, and there's all two of us right now, see vast potential for music in games. It's something that we believe has really been underserved in games, and it's something that we think can really push experience a lot deeper and a lot further. How do you do that? Well, it's a neat idea to connect the music to the logic of the game systems themselves, things that the player actually interacts with. And we'll get into exactly what that means and how that happens later on in the talk. Suffice to say that our goal is to hope to convince you that by looking at music and gameplay interaction in a new way, that you'll see that there's a potential for new gameplay experiences that totally untapped horizon that we are hoping that we all partake in the future. So up next is who are we? I'm Eric Robinson, as Elliot said, and I'm working right now with Justin Stanizzi, who's my friend right over there. This was actually done by my roommate for our 30th birthday. We were actually born on the same day, so it's kind of yeah, so it was for our 30th, and you can see that we have 30 lives, I think. But anyway, so we have Justin and I have a very long history of dealing with music in games. We have known each other for probably 25 years now, and have both been avid game players, and have both worked in music game companies in the industry. Justin worked many years at Harmonix. I have worked with Harmonix, and I worked for several years at a company called Innis in Tokyo, which you may or may not have heard of. They did Elite Beat Agents and Guitar Man, Lips, the karaoke series for the Xbox 360, and more recently some dance games and mobile games. I didn't work on Elite Beat Agents much to my chagrin, but take a good look at that. Justin and I also collaborated a long time ago on a game prototype that no one has ever heard of called Kanji Kami. It survives only to this day on my own portfolio site. That featured really deep integration with music, but we never got there because the game design document called for certain things that just couldn't be done with the technology that we had at hand. We're actually working on changing that. So we banded together and formed Sonic Bloom, a company that is, we're trying to push music deeper into gameplay experience and really help make kind of music blossom in kind of game experiences. So where are we today? What does the status quo look like for music in games? Well, let's take a look at the development timeline to start. We normally start with a prototype phase, and then you have the traditional alpha and then the beta phases. So where does music typically fall in for people? Who here, by the way, is a composer or a musician and working in games? All right, awesome. It's good to see you all. Awesome. People here can feel free to speak up if you have different experiences, but typically it's been my experience, even in music game companies, that really music starts to come in around this point, very, very late in the cycle, and it kind of is something that's like, everyone's like, crap, we forgot, we need to get the left, oh my god, we got the title screen music. Holy crap, what are we gonna do? And then you say you scramble to get people in. So why does that come so late? Well, a lot of it is because the current stance in games development for, as well, I'm sure all of you are, I'm preaching to the choir here to some extent, but the early prototype stuff is usually game systems and sound effects. It's like programmer sounds, just like there's programmer art. If I've got an iTunes file, I know how to convert it as a programmer from a an AAC file or whatever into an MP3 or OGG file, whatever we need. So the point is that we can kind of make our way through the game a little bit with just kind of getting things moving. A lot of people probably program their game with music going on in the background. I'm going to turn off Wi-Fi so that I don't have that weird sound going on anymore. Excuse me, just 1 second. Turns out I didn't use Wi-Fi anyway. So, we're back. All right. Let's see. Right. So you have all the early prototype. You get artists working on art bibles or actual assets. You get game designers working with the programmers, working with the level designers, working with the scripters, working with all of these different components to build the game. The musicians come in later. There are a few standout projects where they come in earlier. Journey is actually one of them, and the Austin Wintory gave a fantastic micro talk at GDC 2014, this past March, and I actually snagged a little bit of his talk off of the website. This is all available on the web. I encourage everyone to go watch the full thing along with all of the micro talks because they're phenomenal. But I just wanted to highlight this really quickly and have Austin speak for the musicians in the room and the industry on this, what I just showed you before, the music slice.
More often we see it like this.
You're
welcome for choosing this, because when I Googled that, I got a whole lifetime of scarring emotionally. But the point is, it's tacked on. It's a layer that we're adding with an overwhelming sense of what it can do to your game. It's just amplifying it in a way that technically fits, but it's not necessarily organic. And it's basically an extension of polish in the game a lot of the time, refining the emotional goals, but not necessarily bringing something entirely new. So what I would like to pitch to you guys is a deeper music and design collaboration.
So what he's saying is basically, speaking from his own personal experience, he worked on Flow and Journey with Genova Chen and that game company from the get-go. He started with the designers early in the project and had deep emotional, a deep connection with the emotional target for those games. And that's something that he responded to very well, and so did the rest of the industry. I think he won some kind of crazy awards for the Journey music. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but his point is to bring the composers in early, because then you can get that emotional impact and you get that emotion from the game design itself, and you're there and maturing with the game design. We want to take that a little bit further, and we hope that you'll see through the rest of this talk that's where hopefully the industry will be moving to go deeper. So let's talk about interactive music, because that's kind of a buzzword. If you talk to WWise, or I don't know, Wise, I guess, the Wise guys, and FMod and all that, they talk about this kind of interactive music concept. It's actually more dynamic music. There's the idea of static music, which is BGM. You hit play and you forget it. You might turn on loop and it just runs. And that'll just play, so that it has an emotional quality that the player's hearing, but really it doesn't necessarily line up with anything. In dynamic music, what you'll have is the player can give a little bit of input, and then the game will send a trigger or some effect to some control logic to the audio. And then you get what looks like this. The game will send it'll adjust some game systems, print something to the screen, and that's what the player is going to respond to. The audio will play out of the speakers, and it just kind of runs. And what you might hear is suddenly a stinger will turn on, and that will affect, the idea is that it'll affect the player on a visceral level. But it only happens at the specific moments. It's more like a sound effect or a setup for a specific room. Like a boss battle, I know this is the boss battle music, so here I'm at the boss battle. Later on in Austin Wintory's talk, he kind of goes into that a little bit too. In this case, the music simply informs the player, affecting emotions if possible, when it's done well. But there's no real effect on the interactions. What we would really like to see is kind of audio sending signals directly back to the game, and the game logic and the game systems, and then having that filter back through to the player. This is what we want to see. We want to see that music not only affect the player in the mind, in that visceral level, but to change what they're interacting with. You know, there's, we'll get into this a little bit more, but before we dive into that, one quick look at what we call reactive synchronization, which is where you have music that is triggered, like we said before, with player input, and then things musically happen, but the player has no control over. There's no affectation of what the player is doing in the game. Everyone knows what this is. This is Killer Instinct. I'm wearing a Killer Instinct shirt, complicated shirt. Big fan of Killer Instinct right here. So they did, in the new Killer Instinct, when they rebooted the series, they created what are known as musical ultra combos. Who here knows what an ultra combo is? Ooh, not many people. Okay, who knows what a combo is in a fighting game? Awesome. All right, we'll start there. In a fighting game, you know, you're doing your moves and you're chaining hits and everything. An ultra combo, and this is something that was ridiculous in the arcades. Killer Instinct started as an arcade game, so you put your quarter in, you get to the battle. Who knows what a finishing move is in Mortal Kombat? All right, sweet. So an ultra combo is a finishing move that's a combo, but you can only do it when the health bar is like really blinking into the last, like, I don't know, 1/8 of the life, 1/10 of the life is left. The bar blinks, and that means, oh, you can do the ultra combo now, and the rest of the life just disappears if you do it. What happens is it triggers this set of, like, it's something like a 10-second long combo that just happens. So it's a massive reward, and you see people do this all the time. They trigger the ultra combo and then just walk away. And then they rush back they rush back to get the next game because someone else had a quarter on the machine or something. But the idea is that was such total shaming to the other person. You're sitting there with your head down, like, oh, I have to watch my character get destroyed. And then there was the ultra combo scream at the end, and I'm kind of fanboying out right now. It was just this visual scream that was amazing. And they always have the volume max. All right, I'm gonna stop blathering about Killer Instinct. The point is, they took those ultra combos and they made them musical in the new one. Now, the guy who did the music for this is named Mick Gordon. He's a really, really great guy as a composer. And he did a presentation at GDC 2014 as well called Next Gen Audio to Killer Instinct. If you have GDC Vault, that ridiculously expensive thing, I recommend going to look it up. I tried to get a clip of what he said at his talk because it speaks to kind of what we're doing at Sonic Bloom. But unfortunately, it's like a $500 paywall, and I was like, I'm a startup, I don't have any money. So in any event, just bear with me here. What they did was they made the Killer Instinct Ultra combos. Each hit becomes part of a rhythmical kind of thing. Here, I'm going to play Chief Thunder's musical ultra. The guy who does this actually triggers it twice because you can in the new version you can do an ultra cancel and revert back to doing more hits and then extend the combo and then trigger the ultra combo again to shame your opponent even further. So you'll see it twice in this. You'll see a yellow flash, and then you'll hear. Listen for the notes, because there will be a change in the music that'll accompany what they call a musical ultra. Also, watch the background too. There it is. Oh, cancel. So that was the musical. Did everyone hear the actual musical? Round of applause for that guy. Did everyone hear the musical effects there that was playing? It was like dun 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 dun, you know, that kind of thing. That's what we call kind of reactive synchronization. The player's not doing anything. The system is just off and running on itself. The things that are the reason it's reactive is that the systems in the game are reactive. They're not. The music itself is reacting to what the player did, and then it's just running on its own. And if you look in the background, I mentioned take a look at the background. There's when the ultra combo on this level is triggered. All the levels have special effects when the ultra combos are triggered. The one in this level, the tornado in the background appears, and then lightning starts to strike. But it doesn't actually synchronize with the music at all, which is also dependent on the ultra combo because each player, or excuse me, each character has their own ultra combo. So it's a very technically challenging problem because you have so many different pieces to it. There's different, like each character has their own thing. How are you going to get as many levels as there are characters times the effects times, you know, it's just ridiculous. But that's how this was implemented in Killer Instinct. And you see similar things happen a lot with like Nintendo DS. Who's played the new Super Mario Bros. For the DS? Okay, it's a handful of people. Did any of you guys notice the little moment where the Koopa kind of does a little dance? Where it goes, pa 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 pa, and he goes into a little dance. Yeah, it's a really neat little thing, and it's almost no effect on the game, but it's, you know, the little Koopas that normally march down, and they do a little dance at moments in the music. Which is a neat effect, but we still figure that's more like reactive. So let's go into proactive synchronization, which I think there needs to be more of in the industry, because there's the active and then the reactive when it comes to interactive audio. So in this case, the music interacts with the gameplay systems. I'm going to just highlight this part here. This is what we want. That's the goal. The current solutions tend to be things that are very algorithmic. You get the iTunes visualizer, oh shit, sorry about that. That was my bad. Not yet. So, all right. So you get the iTunes visualizer effect, and I'll have an image for that later. My display got a little bit screwed. And the problem with the iTunes visualizer is that it's very mathematical. Everyone knows about the iTunes visualizer, yeah? Or visualizers with MP3 players and that kind of thing. You turn it on, there's little particle effects and interesting things happening. Yeah, so what's actually happening there is it's doing spectral analysis on the wave data, the music, and kind of looking for specific moments where you get bursts of like a bass beat. You'll actually, if you watch a spectral analyzer, it'll kind of bump whenever you hear a bass beat or something. And that's what it's looking for. It's just kind of keying into those bump moments where it's like, oh, it fell below a threshold, oh, it came back up above the threshold, and it's hitting every time it passes the threshold, and then reading data out of that. It ends up being very rigid mathematical feeling. It's not terribly artistic. You don't get this idea of I'm in section A of the music versus section B. I'm going to repeat section A. I want that to feel the same. That doesn't quite happen with the visualizers because it's really just looking at the numbers that happen to come out of the wave data. So what we are looking for more is, and this is going to, so I'm going to ask you guys in a moment to close your eyes and visualize something. And to do that, I'm actually going to have to go and fast forward through that really odd sound you heard a second ago. Give me a second.
Everybody synchronize.
Yay, we did it. We got through it. I'm going to get some prototypes. You guys are seeing, you know what? Okay, slide repair. Woo, I did it. Sorry about that, everyone. All right, back on track. So that is a screenshot of the iTunes visualizer for those who haven't seen it before. What happens is you have these two orbs spinning around, and these particles fly out of the orb from behind the orb and kind of spin around it like there's gravity. So what I want you to do now, because that's kind of very non-artistic, and the goal, the thing that is driving us to build the technology that we've been working on, and we're going to show you in a little bit, is something more like, well, very much what you can imagine in your mind as though you were directing your own scene in your own game. Imagine that you are a pilot in Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica, and you're going to go into a pitched dogfight. You have your own wingman with you, and you have a co-pilot perhaps. Maybe it's R2-D2, maybe it's a Cylon, who knows? But you've got a whole group of people, and you're just coming up to the point where you're going to have to break in and start shooting at enemies and trying to fight for your own survival. I'm going to play some music now, and what I'd like everyone to do, and this might sound corny, but I'd like everyone to close your eyes and then listen to the music. It's going to be about a minute and 15 seconds long. Let that music just kind of direct the thoughts. Let your mind, put yourself in a cockpit of a spaceship and in a battle, and just see what comes with the music. This is, by the way, how we kind of do a lot of our kind of early concepting for the game design stuff. So, all right, I'm going to play the music.
Everybody sing.
All right, so I'm just going to guess that a few of you saw things like, first of all, weapons were all firing with the music. That when things were shooting or explosions were happening, there was those bassy hits were kind of happening at the same time. There were moments where your ship, or the way you saw the battle play out, sped up or it slowed down on certain effects that were embedded in that music. If I'm totally off my mark, then crap. But I hope that. I actually closed my eyes as well there. And I'm speaking actually from kind of what I saw when I closed my eyes. I said I'm smiling, I guess. But so a lot of that might come from there's this whole the song kind of gets you in the mood where everybody synchronizes. That's one of the things. The lyrics say everybody synchronizes. At that moment, for me, all of those, your wingmen are firing at the same enemy at the same time. And there's, you're dodging bullets that are coming back at you from the other side. This is all stuff that's really hard to do with traditional music and traditional sound effects, traditional music and traditional game systems, because the player generally is figuring like they can just go way off in the middle and I'm running away from this battle for now. Like, I don't want to touch this. But there are, so a lot of the problem with having music be formative or informative, I guess, for the systems is that the player kind of directs the action versus the music. So we have kind of worked out some technology to overcome a lot of those problems, and we're going to start by showing you guys a few of the demos that we worked on, or the prototypes that we've been building. We have 2 prototypes that we're going to show, and then we'll bounce back and show you the thing that we did over the course of 3 days, or 2.5, really, with our technology after the initial demos, which we had developed in concert with the technology that we'll show you after all of that. All right, so I'm going to start by popping out of here and opening up this bring this over here, make sure that I'm getting the right thing. So the music's going to be pretty loud. Can you actually turn the volume down a little bit on the computer? Cool, thanks. The first thing we did was, we talked about reactive animation, reactive systems. And one of the things that we found was really cool was once our system was up and running, that became trivial for us to do. So this is the beat synchronized animation. I just explained this today. So this guy you may recognize. He's the kind of Unity sample assets. If anyone's had those downloaded those sample assets off the asset store. That is an NGUI element at the top left. It's bouncing to the beat right now. This guy will actually run on the beat. And here's what it looks like without that. I just run. Now he's going to be running on the beat again. And I don't remember what button I set for what there is. I'm going to make him walk on the beat. So this is just one little thing. It turns out if you have a tempo map and 15 minutes with scripting, you get something like this. I just was able to get beat matching. So this is an animation that I didn't do. This is just a walk cycle. And I downloaded it and I wrote a script in 15 minutes and I had music synchronized animation with Mechan. So let me quit this. This next one shows more, that was all the kind of reactive. The next one will show more of the directed experience that we're talking about before, where the music actually is driving what's happening. This is Rebirth is the nickname for our project. And please bear with us on the art. It was actually the guy who did Titan Souls, did like an hour-long pass on some art for us. So you might recognize the art style, but anyway, here is same music, but you'll see that laser is kind of going. Can you turn the volume up just a little bit? So I'm not firing anything. All I'm doing is directing this little turret thing right here, and the ship. In this case. So the width of the laser is dependent on kind of the music in the background there. It's kind of playing along. Just watching the laser number is fire. Those missiles are all firing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And there is the background. That's all. Really early prototype of a game that we've been kind of working on for a little while. We didn't have the technology when we came up with that, and we were like, how the hell are we going to hook into all the different sounds we want to hook into different music and everything? And the system that we built was actually a result of kind of trying to solve that problem, like the thing that we did. So the next thing I'm going to show you guys is we're going to go, trying to finger my mouse. Where's my, there it is. So we used this as a foundation to build our own stuff. We figured, okay, what can we do if we take this, which looks a lot better than the last thing that I showed you guys, and do something similar. This is actually the video. I've masked out the regions, but this is the tutorial video from the Unity spaceship shooter tutorial. The one that you can download, the completed version that you can download off the asset store, is slightly more interesting because it has a scrolling background with the star fields and everything. It looks a little bit nicer. So We took that and we modified it. And so I'm going to show you what we did now. Actually open up Unity. Don't be fooled by my light theme. This is Unity Pro. But you don't need Pro for any of the tech that we do. All right, so I'm gonna give this a shot and play this for the first time in front of anyone besides Justin. Right now I'm firing. I'm holding the fire down and it's firing once every, I believe it's every 8 notes. And now I'm gonna let go. Now I'm not, all I'm doing is directing the shit. You'll see why in a minute. I'm also trying to dodge all that fire. So another thing we did was the asteroid blow up on the nearest 8 node when they get hit. And the other ships, when they get hit, it starts the timer and it goes to the next quarter. The enemies all fire on syncopated beats, so it's kind of midway between the quarters. What I did earlier in the oops was I actually slowed down the music. So I added that to speed up. But anyway. Oh, I think it's actually loose. I should die now. Hold on. I can't die. Where's my... Not that much health. Come on now. Alright, now it's loose. Okay. Also, how much light? Alright. So, that we did all of that, and basically we took what you saw before and turned it into that in like 2.5 days. Did you notice a bunch of the effects? We added a bunch of camera blur. There's a neat kind of color. We purchased one asset store asset that we used that was Colorify or something like that, which kind of lets you play with a bunch of neato. Let me see if I can maintain like camera post-process effects. We had double vision at one point. Like, a lot of this we didn't use because it's a little bit crazy and over the top. For instance, the player ship there. Oh, also like that. Still vertical. Let's go back to the game camera. Yeah, so this is what it kind of looks like. We had the analog TV set up for a while, which made it look like this, which was neat. We had playing with distortion, but that was kind of wonky. All right, so moving on. How did we do what we just showed you? We built this tool. Let me go actually really quickly. Back to this. Before we go and show you what we built. So this is music going deeper. It's a very deep integration with the music. The game systems in this game really don't work unless there's an influence from the music. We can make them so that they do, but we think that's less interesting because that whole experience, the more you know the music, the more you can prepare yourself to do interesting things in the game. The music is driving how you play your game. And that emotional quality, you can really tie that experience to the emotional impact of the music itself, so that those moments just inherently happen if the player sort of manages to survive through those moments, I guess. Also depending on the game. So we think that we need to bring in the composers a lot earlier for this. That doing this will allow the composers to start building out their music really, really early in the in the design process, so that musicians become level designers in effect. So songs themselves have that intro, and they've got a body, and they've got the outro. There's a play out. I mean, it might only be 1 or 2 measures, but it's pretty quick, but it's there. And we think that the music can mirror the structure of the level, and if those things are built in concert, then you can create some really fascinating experiences and really drive gameplay into new directions with that. You kind of build it so that the music tells the level, but this tells the story of the level along with the visuals. So it's all working together. You can have things in the background exploding, more of that reactionary stuff, but at the same time the proactive stuff. And this doesn't, by the way, preclude you from doing the dynamic music stuff that we were talking about earlier, where you trigger different sounds, different stems or things like that to happen if the player is doing really well, or if certain things happen, mid-boss fight or an end-boss fight or something like that. So we worked for a while to do that, and we're happy to announce finally today to people who can actually come out and talk about it. Today we've kind of kept this on the down low for a while for business reasons, and are happy to announce that the technology we've been building is called Choreographer, and oh my god, I love that effect. Justin is cringing right now. He told me that. I put that in as a joke, and then totally forgot during feedback that I should be moving. So let's take a look and see the current state of Choreographer, which is, this is what we did to get this stuff to work. You might have been able to suss out, based on what I've been talking about so far, kind of how we did what we've done. I'm going to bring this on. Likes to open up in the wrong window now. Actually, let me just here. So a lot of the terminology here is going to change, so don't worry about like track group or whatever. Let's bring this over here. Unless we forget, this is the actual data that was running behind the scenes with with what I just played. This is the audio waveform data for that song, unless we forget. And I mean, just put it in there. It's faster. I'm not. So what we've done here is first of all, there's a tempo map. You can see these lines here are the beat lines. You have the measure boundary. You kind of set your own tempos into the data itself. This is how we did the music synchronized mechanism. We used information from that while the music was playing to figure out when beats happen. So we have music time. With this system, you get music time. A lot of the effects that we had, like we didn't have time to do this, but in that game we were hoping to do. When you move, you know how you multiply things by dt? like the delta time to kind of get how far things have moved in a frame. You can do that with audio time, and then you know, based on what the tempo is of the music, the actual distance that something moves in the game will change. I like to call it instead of distance per second, DPS, in a way it's not named, distance per second. You can call it distance per beat. Kind of turn a beat into a second. You have to modify the number a bit, but it works. And so we have that. We have multiple tracks in it. One of the things we're going to add as for support before full release is going to be dynamic tempo adjustments. So you can have a curve for your tempo, like ramp up and ramp down. This right here, I'm actually going to, these are sample values. I'm going to turn that into more human-readable, measure in beats. This right here, these are actual events. These are what are currently known as one-offs. They're just a trigger, essentially embedded in the data. Now, what we do beyond just normal triggers is we send the metadata along with each of these about the specific sample timing. And what that lets you do is actually offset. So, for instance, you might actually have two of those things happen within the span of one frame. That 30 milliseconds or whatever it takes for your delta time. You might actually have two events happen at that same within that same frame, and then they wouldn't quite line up right, because if it was just a trigger, you would say, oh, spawn a bullet, and then you'd have two bullets overlaid one on top of the other. But with this system, and with that metadata, you can actually offset them so that they appear to work correctly. We actually added that after we realized that that was why our system wasn't looking quite right, the bullets weren't lining up correctly. To get that more kind of sample aligned look and feel. So these don't have any metadata beyond that associated with them, but we have other types of music, or of events. Let's go into, where? We're going to synth boards. These are curves. These are animation curves. There's typical Unity animation curves. You can do any kind of manner of fun thing with them. Like, I'm going to pull that over there, make this one, I'm going to add a full keyframe there. You can see it's moving down here and it's modifying as well. What this lets you do, I'm cringing right now because I'm breaking his hardly worked on data. This basically lets you kind of do, you can do per beat motion and animate the value along the timeline. And as the music itself moves, the system, underlying system will report that number. Now it's open-ended. You can set the value from negative whatever to positive whatever. It's just a float value. So any system in your game that runs on a float value can be fed off of the music by this. That's really kind of the power that we see in this, is that we have, this is synth chords, but then we also have, which is a kind of our attempts to kind of look for the synth-sounding musical notes, those moments in this music. But at the same time, you can say like, well, I want just the camera zoom. This is an effect. This whole section of the song, I want there to be feel really intense. So I want the camera to move in on the player. I want the player, in another example, we didn't get a chance to do. We want the player to actually have a shield running during that time, as though like they just went into mega overdrive mode and have all this stuff. Feel like a badass, because we get, hey, guess what? The music is driving you. That emotion is there. Empower the player along with the emotion. That's kind of what this effect was built to do right there. So that's kind of a quick overview of what the system does. We're going to be modifying this heavily before we actually ship it. I'm going to see if I can get this thing to just show you how you actually make a curve right now in the data. I'm going to hit play. While it's playing back, I'm going to actually speed it up a bit too, because it's so painful. Let's up a curve in. Now it quantizes to the beat, so you can turn that off. So it'll snap the beat value down here. But I can say, like, do that. So for fine tuning, it's actually go way down. So, but the point is that right now, we stupid easy for anyone who has a vision to be able to use it. If you have music, you can go in and do this. I have a friend who has been working with us behind the scenes, and he took the same Unity demo that we had and started playing with it, and got the thing it would fire its shots 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it would show a GUI that said 4, 3, 2, 1, and it would fire 4 more. And he's like brand new programming, brand new all the stuff, and got it up and running in like, you know, a day or something. The point is that we don't want to restrict this tool to musicians. We want everyone to be able to have a hand in making that experience feel great. That's something we're going to be really working on to maintain a DAW feel. DAW is digital audio workstation. If anyone's ever opened any of those and been like, what the hell? You're in big company with me. We've got a long way to go before we're going to be releasing this. One of the things we're obviously going to do is have multiple tracks visible at the same time instead of just the one, which is silly. So let's get back to the talk. I'm almost done. So these developer preview signups. I mentioned, I think the blast that went out to everybody said that we were going to be letting people sign up for the beta. It's actually the developer preview. We're going to have it delivered in early October. That's our promise to you guys. We want to get this thing out to into people's hands and get you guys moving and get feedback from you if you have any thoughts or ideas for how to improve the system or needs. That's something that we're really keen on kind of getting done. But at the same time, we're really interested to see what other people do with this system. We've talked to several people. There are a couple people in the audience that we've actually been working with. And what we've noticed is that when people see this and they start to talk to them about it, there's the creativity that comes out of it, and the ideas like, how I can use this in my game, or what if you could do something, could you do something like this? And like, yeah, why not? It's really fascinating, and it's one of the things that got us excited. We want to see what you guys can do with it, what you can make. As for signups for this, we have a website, choreographer.com. We're also, you can email us at contact@sonicbloomgames.com. I have cards up here that are in this box or in my pocket. So come find me and chat me up. And we have a sign-up sheet, which is over there. So after this, come find us and write your name and email down there. We promise not to send you spam. It's only going to be for choreographer, and it's only going to be about the developer preview. You have our contact info. If you want to get spam from us, ask for spam. We don't have any interest in that. So that's what it is. Oh, one last thing. When you sign up, because that form is on the web, there's where did you hear about us? We're not really interested in opening this up to anyone who finds the link or is sent the link. There's a key, and that is when it says where did you hear about this? Either bug or refig or both would be fine. Just kind of put that in there, and at choreographer.com, there's the link to the signed form. Be good. One last note is that we are looking for help. We need engineers. We are a 2-man team, and this is a big project, and we want to get it done. So if you are interested, come find either Justin or myself after this during mingle time, and we'll chat. Thank you very much.